And we are already late again, but we are going to press on. And before we do, I want us to start with a word of prayer. Can we have a volunteer?
Let us pray. Eternal Father, we give you thanks for today. We thank you because you have been guiding these proceedings. We pray that you will pour out your blessings upon us and help us to deliberate wisely, and that at the end of our deliberation, our disability community in Jamaica and the Caribbean will be better served. Father, we thank you and we ask you to come and dwell with us today and always.
Amen. 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 Thank you, Uncle Willie. And always good to see you in their house. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, colleagues and friends, want to take this opportunity to specially welcome all of you, but even more so, we are very happy to have in our presence the Honorable Minister Olivia Babsy Grinch, who I can say without any fear of contradiction, a friend of the community of persons with disabilities. And she is here to make a presentation in her own right, and we want to acknowledge her, and we ask that you give her a round of applause. I also want to take this opportunity to extend a very, very special welcome to a daughter of the soil who has distinguished herself internationally in that she was an advisor to the Obama administration on disability issues and worked at the White House for years with President Obama. And I'm even more proud because she's not just a Jamaican, but she's a St. Marian. Yes, the St. Mary people distinguish themselves anywhere they go. So I want to take this opportunity to welcome my friend, Claudia Gordon. Welcome, Claudia. And a little later on in the conference, you will hear from Claudia because she wants to share and give you a charge as we move on to the next stage of our advocacy for persons with disabilities in Jamaica. We are going to have a number of presentations today, and coffee break is scheduled for 11? Yes. 11, but we're going to have to make some adjustments, and we'll announce that. And also, I can say that we're going to have to push back lunch to 1 o'clock. Right? 1 o'clock. 1 o'clock. But just to take care of those administrative issues. Those who came in for the conference just today, be reminded that we have our volunteers who are all decked in their red shirts, which is the color of the University of the West Indies, so you can see them all around, red and white. Stand up and let them see you. They are either committee members or volunteers, and they are fully prepared and trained to deal with your needs. So, ladies And gentlemen, we look forward to having another progressive day of conference, and we'll have our final session where we discuss what we have focused on over the 2 days, and then chart the course for the future. Thank you very much. I turn you over to the chair of the first discussion, Mrs. Christine Hendricks, the Executive Director for the Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Senator. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's such a pleasure to see everyone who is here this morning. Let me also welcome our Minister who is with us this morning, our Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment, and Sport. And I can add to the fact that she is really into disability. She is intimate with persons with disabilities, and she's interested in moving the disability agenda forward. And so we're very happy to have her to be speaking with us this morning about culture and sports inclusion and access for persons with disabilities, because we want to know how persons with disabilities can better access, more of the cultural space and the sporting events and activities that happen right across this country. We know we have the Special Olympics and the Paralympics and so on, but there are other persons who are interested in participating in sports, in other sports, and we want to know how persons can access those areas. Yesterday we heard a person with a disability wanting to find out how can writers who have a disability enter the whole cultural space. How can they be guided to ensure that their writing gets into the space and gets the attention it needs? And so we look forward to having Minister Grain speaking to that, hopefully. We will also have Ms. Natalie Nita, who is the Member of Parliament as well. She will be here, and she is the opposition spokesperson, I believe, on sports, information, and gender affairs, and we look forward to hearing from her as soon as she arrives. And so, without further ado, let me introduce to you a woman of class, a woman who is full of cultural experience, a woman who has music in her bones and in her spirit, a woman who has done Jamaica proud, locally and abroad, representing, our people as it pertains to culture and sports. If nobody in this island knows Honorable Minister Babsy Grange, then I'm not sure where you've been living. But everybody should know her because she has represented her portfolio well, whether or not she is in government. Can we say that is true? It is true. And so we're proud of her and proud to be associated with her and proud to be listening to her this morning. And so just put your hands together as we hear our Honorable Minister speak to inclusion and access to sports and culture. Thank you.
Good morning. Senator Dr. Floyd Morris, I thank you so much for inviting me.
Yes, Minister.
I'm extremely happy to be here this morning. Moderator, Christine, my sister, it's so good to see you, and I hope you're not tired of my calls. I keep calling you to assist my constituents and other persons with disabilities from time to time. And I really want to thank you for your support.
Thank you too.
Ms. Claudia Gordon, lawyer, and former advisor to President Obama, and of Jamaican roots.
Yes.
I'm so happy to see you here this morning, and I want to applaud you. Am I doing the right thing?
Yes.
For your achievements. Other distinguished ladies and gentlemen, heads of various agencies, and because I don't have the names here, I can't acknowledge you individually, but I noticed that there's Mrs. June Spencer Jarrett, Interim Executive Director of the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, and she's here with us this morning. Mrs. Spencer Jarrett, where are you? I'm there, and let's give her a round of applause. And as we would say in Jamaica, or Miss Lou would say, clap yourself. In March 2017, Jamaica's Special Olympics team represented our nation very well at the Winter Games in Austria. And Claudia was asking about that earlier. During the competition, a reporter interviewed a member of our team, of the Special Olympics team, Andrew Thompson, who competes in floor hockey. The reporter asked him, "Do you think you will win?" Well, in typical Jamaican style, without blinking an eye, Andrew said with a smile, "Yeah, I always win."
That's right.
With that confidence, Andrew helped the Jamaica team to defeat Costa Rica to take the bronze medal in floor hockey for the floor hockey T1 division. But that confidence isn't limited to Andrew. Building confidence in one's abilities is one of the main benefits of competing in Special Olympics Jamaica. This is a space in which we do not see disability, but rather it's a space where we highlight and celebrate ability. Our national sports programs for people with disabilities, perhaps more than all others, give us a chance to celebrate ability. The ability of each and everyone, to celebrate effort and to celebrate achievement. All our competitors have to push themselves and overcome several challenges in order to compete. It gives me great pleasure to watch our young people discover strengths they never thought they had, to do things they never thought possible, and achieve success, the kind that we all can share, and the kind that inspires a nation. But while many people living with disability have been able to use sports and the arts to highlight their abilities with dignity, we are well aware that across all societies, the prospects for people with disability are not as bright as they should be. There are 1 billion people living in our world today with some form of disability. And 200 million of them, according to the World Report on Disability, have considerable difficulties in functioning. The data is showing that the prevalence of people living with a disability is rising and will continue to rise as people live longer. We know that there is a higher risk of disability in older people. Added to that, there is the global increase in chronic health conditions such as diabetes, the complications of which sometimes lead to a disability. Now, the sad reality is that across the world, people with disabilities have poorer health outcomes, lower education achievements, less economic participation, and higher rates of poverty than people without disabilities. It's not that they do not have the ability to achieve in all areas of life. As Senator Morris, Andrew Thompson, Camila Isaacs, who I manage as a singer, who has one of the most fantastic voices in Jamaica, and others have proven. The problem is that people with disabilities experience barriers in accessing services that people without disabilities take for granted. As minister, it is my duty, and it is also my honor and pleasure to lead the chairs for people with disabilities who compete in sport and take part in the arts. But I have a larger mandate, and that is to remove the barriers that prevent them from participating and enable them to unlock their vast potential. And you can applaud if I say something that you like to. Our national sport policy was developed on the philosophy of sports for all. It is an inclusive policy that provides the framework for the mobilizing of all our people, disabled or otherwise, to participate in all forms of physical activity. The major focus of government sports development thrust is enabling our sports people to achieve global success through investment in national, community, and school sport, in coaching, facilities, and welfare. An important pillar of our Sport for All vision is providing all Jamaicans with access to sport. And I must indicate here that the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, which the acronym is JADCO, is located in a building which does not help with our athletes who have physical disabilities. It's upstairs, and there is no access, no ramp, no wheelchair access. And I'm actively looking for a building that will provide the access they are entitled to ensure that they can freely access the services of the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission. And so we are looking for a property to ensure. Now, as I said earlier, important pillar of our Sport for All vision is providing all Jamaicans with access to sport. To put it another way, our vision is that every Jamaican, regardless of his or her challenges, must be able to access sports facilities and be able to participate in sport. Each year, my ministry invests significant sums in building out and improving sports infrastructure. We are continuously improving facilities at Independence Park, including the National Stadium, the Stadium Pool, the Leela Robinson Courts, and the multi-purpose court for Special Olympians. We ensured that we created that space and created that facility. This is in addition to the development of fields, courts, and tracks in schools and communities across the country each year. We are now in the process of major infrastructure upgrades at the National Stadium and the Trelawney Stadium to bring the facilities up to international standards. An important effect of these upgrades is that members of our national family who have disabilities will have greater access to the facilities. In fact, we looked at the stadium pool, the aquatic center, and we have and continuing to ensure that we upgrade the facilities there so that persons with disabilities will easily access the facility. And while I'm speaking, I see my colleague, Member of Parliament, and the opposition spokesperson on sports arriving. Natalie Headley. It's my pleasure to welcome her and to say it's nice to see your face in the place. And I must indicate to you that we work closely together. If she's not the Minister of Sports, I'm the Minister of Sports. And the sports policy, I left the green paper, and she completed it with the white paper. And so, we both have contributed to the establishment of one of the best sports policies in this region. So, I continue, true to our commitment to safeguard the well-being of athletes. The Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport has also implemented the Jamaica Athletes Insurance Plan, which is another program that MP Nita Headley, again, it's like, you know, it's like a relay. The baton passes from one to the other, with a seamless effort to ensure that Jamaica wins, regardless of the political divide. In keeping with the national sports policy, more than 1,300 of our sports people across the various disciplines are covered under the plan, including members of deaf sport. Am I right?
Yes.
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 And it, you know, we had a meeting recently, and I made a commitment that I'm going to assist to the greatest extent that I can to assist deaf sport. We had a wonderful meeting. Visually impaired cricket, I have a fantastic relationship there again. And I remember one year they had to go to compete and they did not get enough scholarship, and they had resigned themselves to the fact that, oh, we will not be able to compete. And it was brought to my attention. And within hours, I would say, I ensured that they were able to leave Jamaica and go and compete in the region. Special Olympics and Paralympics, again, they are given assistance, and through the Sports Development Foundation, we ensure that the support is there. In fact, there's a monthly subvention that is provided to both the Paralympics Association and the Special Olympics Association. So athletes with disabilities account for roughly 10% of all athletes currently registered under the Jamaica Athletes Insurance Plan. And we are appealing to the sporting bodies to ensure that their athletes are registered under the insurance plan. In addition, the ministry provides, as I said earlier, monthly subventions to each of the 43 registered national sports associations to help run their development programs and to prepare national teams for various competitions. Again, the associations that represent athletes with disabilities are well supported under this program. Regarding training, the Ministry of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sport invests heavily in the G.C. Foster College of Physical Education and Sport, providing a monthly subvention to the college. Thanks to the investment in G.C. Foster College, schools across the country can engage at least one well-trained physical education teacher who is able to spot and develop talent, encourage an active lifestyle, and go on to coach our elite athletes to global success. However, my brothers and sisters, there is a need for more coaches and other technical sport personnel who specialize in areas that will support the mobilization and participation of people with disabilities to be involved in sport. And this is one area that I want us to focus on addressing as part of building sports for all. People with disabilities are making significant contributions to the cultural and creative industries. Within my ministry, the Jamaica Cultural Development Commission has a strong record of engaging people with disabilities in all its annual competitions and celebratory events. In fact, we have been able to develop initiatives especially for people with disabilities, such as the Deaf Dance competition. I don't know if any of those participants are here. But the Deaf Dance competition, and this competition was staged in 2006 to sensitize the deaf community on dance forms with a view to encourage them to celebrate the culture in this medium while building their self-confidence. The competition continues to grow. And last year, we were proud to welcome entries from the Jamaica Association for the Deaf Preschool, the Mapen Unit for the Deaf, the Caribbean Christian Center for the Deaf, St. Christopher School for the Deaf, Jamaica Christian School for the Deaf, Danny Williams School for the Deaf, Abilities Foundation, Port Antonio Unit, JAD, and Lister Mayor Gilby High School for the Deaf. Isn't that wonderful? The Institute of Jamaica, through the Junior Center, again, the Institute of Jamaica falls under my ministry, also has a long tradition of hosting children from all backgrounds, including children with disabilities. That program has helped to produce a very outstanding Jamaican musician. I don't know if anybody knows his name. Can you guess? Through that program, one of the most outstanding musicians in Jamaica, Grub Cooper, who joined the Junior Center in his youth and successfully completed the program. And today, Grub Cooper is one of the best producers of Jamaican music and an excellent musician and an excellent songwriter. Moving forward, we must ensure that members of the disabled community are able to participate in the cultural and creative industries and to reap the economic benefits from this creation. And in the process of updating the national culture policy, we have taken the time to consult with creative practitioners who have disabilities. Their input is critical. This is one area of human endeavor where we continue to be inspired by the exceptional talent and creativity of our brothers and sisters with disabilities. In fact, we're about to appoint the Culture and Creative Industries Council. And we are ensuring that on that council, persons with disabilities are represented and they have a voice in the development of the industry. So in the end, we all want the same things.
That's right.
We all want a worthwhile life. We want to live and work in comfort and dignity with respect for our contributions. Sport and the culture and creative industries offer these possibilities. Sport and the cultural and creative industries offer outlets to celebrate the ability of people with disabilities. Sport and the cultural and creative industries offer you opportunities to express yourselves, to push yourselves, and to live a worthwhile life. And as I conclude, that was a little lengthy, right?
Interesting.
But as I conclude, I want to say to all of you, you are special. You're not special because you have disabilities. You are special because you are talented Jamaicans. And you have abilities that many able-bodied individuals and those who can see, not really seeing. You are more perceptive, you are more embracing, and more than anything else, you are able to overcome challenges and contribute in a tremendous way to Jamaica's development. But there is more to be done to improve access to your participation and to unlocking the vast potential of you, our brothers and sisters living with disabilities. God bless you all. Love you. Thank you.
I feel good. Who feels good? Yes, I really feel good about that presentation. Minister Grange has said quite a number of things which we will look at when we get to our section to entertain questions and answers, and we wrap up this section. But before we get to that, we have the opposition spokesperson on sports information and gender affairs with us, Ms. Natalie Nita. And as I said, well, we heard earlier from our minister, they both work as a team. When one moves out of office, the other just steps in and takes over and carries on. And we're happy for that. We're very, very happy for that. And so let us put our hands together for our opposition spokesperson of sports, information and gender affairs, Ms. Natalie Nita. As she speaks on culture and sports inclusion and access for persons with disabilities.
Good morning. Yeah. I want to thank you for inviting me here this morning and especially acknowledge your moderator, Christine Hendricks, also Executive Director of Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities, Minister Olivia Babsy Grange, my colleague, and in overtime we are parishinas as well. We're both in St. Catherine as members of Parliament, and regardless of what happens, we are on each other's borders. And so we need to be friendly so that the other people around us can maintain a similar relationship. I want to also acknowledge Senator Floyd Morris, Director for the Center of Disability Studies, Mrs. Claudia Gordon, former VP of the National Black Deaf Advocates, USA. Good to have you. And a former advisor to President Barack Obama. It's good to be in your presence. Just to be in your presence. It feels like I'm in his as well, right? But good morning to everyone, members of the disabilities community, presenters, panelists, and special guests, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen. It is a good morning.
Yes, it is.
And it's a good morning because we all are here and we're having this conversation,
yes,
which is so critical. We are supposed to be modern people, and we are living in modern times. And modern human beings have been around for hundreds of years. What they say is modern anyway. And I want to recognize those persons who are here from the various sporting associations who act as heads and who are mentors and who give their time and sacrifice. I'm looking straight in the face. So I know all of you would have given a lot of time to para sports over the years and Special Olympics, and I want to acknowledge you at this time as well. So it was famous Greek philosopher Aristotle who quoted and said, "Let there be a law that no deformed child shall live." This is a man that many consider to be the father of modern civilization and one of the greatest thinkers of all time. One of the earliest examples of a divergent view was that of Cyrannus, a Greek physician who opened a hospital that provided humane treatment for people with mental illness and possibly intellectual disability. The treatment, which included rest and sympathy and reading and participation in dramatic performances. 12th century physician, rabbi, and philosopher Maimonides, who lived and worked between Morocco and Egypt, thought that the brain of the phlegmatic man, which is too humid, produces mental retardation. However, he thought the phlegmatic person, if properly instructed, can make some intellectual progress, though difficult. Yet with all of this, the concept of the value of persons with disabilities is still a relatively new phenomenon. In fact, it was not until the 20th century that a more sensible approach to the care of the treatment of persons with disabilities became common in most countries around the world. This is when it was recognized that many intellectual disabilities could be treated through medication and therapy, and that persons with physical disabilities could be immensely productive. In the bad old days, it was the survival of the fittest, and the fittest referred only to those of physical strength, not those capable of contributing to the most of the society and human development. As hunter-gatherers, if you could not keep up with the clan as it followed the herds, you are simply abandoned to virtual sure death. What divides us from that era is the realization that being physically or intellectually disabled does not make you valueless. And in fact, many of our most valuable citizens suffer from disabilities. I don't know one human being who does not have some form of disability. These persons have great things to offer if we as a society take the time to listen to them and to cater to them, which is very often their very simple needs. How difficult is it for us as a people to recognize a person with a white cane and that it indicates that that person is visually impaired? Or that the building ramps and the bathroom access confirms that the wheelchairs and providing special access parking for those persons in just doing what we should always want to be doing. Why do some of us refuse to employ persons with disabilities, despite their proven ability to work of the same standard and often exceeding the standard of the able-bodied peers? Many telephone operators working with the government are visually impaired, and we can't know because they do such a fantastic job. When we answer the phone, we hear people who are attentive, assertive, courteous, and understand good customer service. So, what drives our innate urge when we're young to jeer other children with physical disabilities, to make cruel fun of them with intellectual challenges? What drives that? The truth is, I was always a little fluffy. And being fluffy was considered a disability. Isn't that true? Yes. Yeah, man. So I was always the big and so-so. Huh? Swati. Huh? I was always the one who, they said, boy, I'm not fat too fat, a breeze blow you up. So there was always someone picking at you, jeering you, making fun of you, because your disability seemed different. So for me, this is what divides us from barbarians, and what should divide us from barbarians. In a utopian future, perhaps nearer than we think, or perhaps as I hope, most of those physical and intellectual challenges will be treatable by medical science and will not be able to distinguish between people in one group or another. But we will still have cruel and selfish people. MentalFloss.com lists scientists with disabilities who changed the world. Among these are Thomas Edison, Albert Einstein, Stephen Hawking, and who would dare declare that Helen Keller was anything less than an outright genius. Franklin D. Roosevelt became President of the United States despite suffering from polio, but hid his disability in the fear that it would make the electorate reject his candidacy. Today, among the most inspiring of all sporting events held are the parasports events, like the Paralympic Games and the Special Olympic events. They share one thing in common: the ability to inspire us, not just you, but inspire all of us, able bodies as well, that we should never take our natural gifts for granted. To all intents and purposes, Usain Bolt has a disability with scoliosis that he has overcome to become the world's most celebrated track and field athlete today.
Absolutely.
In culture, there are numerous examples of persons with disabilities reaching the top of their fields. Singers and musicians like my good friend Stevie Wonder, Jose Feliciano, Adina Edwards, Frankie Paul right here in Jamaica, Grub Cooper, who have succeeded despite visually challenged. Anybody remember the Israel Vibration? Yeah. Whose members met while undergoing treatment at the Mona Rehab Center, one of reggae's most popular touring groups with millions of fans worldwide.
I used to manage them.
And Babsy used to manage them. So I tell her she's going to manage me soon.
Fantastic voice.
Yeah, tremendous talent.
So when I leave politics, I'll take up singing and I'll check Babsy to manage. In fact,
Then you'll make some money.
then we'll make some money, right? I'll finally make some money. In fact, we are bound with blind and visually challenged singers and musicians and artists, and gospel performers like Dennis Haynes, or popular singer like the late Roy Richards. The case of the Stage Records family is unique because they have two blind, the pioneering Fab Five and its brother band, the Unique Vision, which have both drawn heavily on the visually challenged community. Fab Five, one of music's most successful cultural enterprises in Jamaica in history, has two totally blind members, Sidney Thorpe and Cleveland Manderson, and two legally blind members, Grub Cooper and Donovan Palmer. The unique vision started out with all visually challenged members and still contains 1 totally blind member and 2 visually challenged members. The statistics which often draws laughter is one which held the average American family as 2.5 children. While this may be technically correct, no single American family has 2.5 children. No Jamaican family have 2.5 children either. Because there's no such thing as a half a child.
Or a half brother or a half sister.
Well, I don't know about the half brother and the half sister, but there's no such thing as a half a child. Here in Jamaica, despite the recently passed Disabilities Act in 2014, there is still no official, reliable information on the current size of our disabled population. But based on the World Health Organization report, it estimates that the average nation has between 15 and 17% of its population affected by disabilities. The Jamaica Council for Persons with Disabilities estimate that close to 1 million persons in Jamaica are affected by at least one disability. I challenge that it is more. This is based on over 400 persons living in Jamaica being disabled, and each of these having some extended immediate family who would also be affected. According to the census data in 2001, just over 6% of the population in Jamaica identified as living with a disability. That's over 160,000 persons. Of these individuals, however, fewer than 1% reported having paid employment, making the disabled community one of the most vulnerable groups in Jamaica. So why should we care? First, because it's the right thing to do. Secondly, because the disabled community is a tremendous talent base that is currently underutilized, and we ignore them at our own peril as a nation. Thirdly, because with a little assistance, most of our disabled persons can become productive contributors to nation building, rather than a drain on national resources and a stress enhancer for their families and friends. It is in this light that the participation of persons with disabilities in sports and culture becomes crucially important. One of the biggest afflictions facing persons with disabilities, not the disability itself, but the frustration and lethargy which it engenders. Give a disabled person the chance to prove him or herself worthy, and watch how quickly they will blossom. I want to thank Deaf Sport for your gift. It was a lovely gift. I thank you. I now have a Deaf Sport cup nicely positioned in my cabinet. And I want to applaud you for taking on not just the sport, but the marketing of your sport, because it is what is going to allow you to get the kind of funding to move forward. When Alfonso Cunningham, our great Paralympian, wins a gold medal or establishes a world record, it is not just the disabled community which rejoices. All Jamaica rejoices with him. Nobody cared that Frankie Paul was blind. We just reveled in his great singing voice, and we don't judge Floyd Morris on his disability, but on the excellence of his work. And so I firmly believe that if we want to become truly first world and achieve our 2030 objectives for Brand Jamaica, that we can only do so when we ensure that the opportunities for every Jamaican with a disability to participate in sports, or politics, or cultural events become such a non-issue that it need not be addressed. We have made ground in this direction, notably the Special Olympic facility right at Independence Park. But a lot more needs to be done. I remember the one-leg dancer who used to entertain at the major cultural events right across Jamaica. He never saw himself as disabled, you know. He still doesn't see himself as disabled. He saw his challenge as an opportunity. That is how, and that is what we need to do as a nation. See our disabled population as an opportunity to show that we are truly worthy of being considered first world. We lead in other areas. Let's lead in the treatment of our disabled population as well. I encourage the private sector today. Support all endeavors in sport and culture for disabled persons. And I stand ready to play my part on behalf of the opposition in making the opportunities for disabled persons just as easy as those for their able-bodied counterparts. I congratulate you, the organization, in the preparation and execution of this conference as we continue the dialogue to ensure the advancement of our people with disabilities. Thank you.
We thank Ms. Natalie Nita for her presentation on capturing the situation of persons with disabilities and highlighting the contribution that persons with disabilities have the potential to make, and reminding us that we should care, or society should care about inclusion because it is the right thing to do. Persons with disabilities are talented but underutilized, and persons with disabilities can become productive members of society, and they are productive members of society. And with a little bit more push and opportunities, we know that we can go much further. And so as we sat and listened, I'm sure we have questions that have been formulating in our minds. We have things that we'd want to add perhaps, or things that we'd want to find out from our minister and our opposition spokesperson. And so we're opening the floor, just reminding us of what minister reminded us of or spoke about. She spoke about the fact that her responsibility is the removal of barriers to ensure that persons with disabilities have access to both culture and sports. And one of those ways in which her government is removing the barriers is the provision of the national sports policy that both parties have been working on or have worked on, and it is now a white paper. That is what we're hearing, Minister?
It is now the policy.
Okay, it is now the policy. Okay, awesome. So we now have a policy, not a draft policy, but a ready policy for sports. And she spoke to the fact that they're actively seeking a building for JADCO to ensure that persons can have access, that's physical access to JADCO, the building, the services that they offer. She spoke to the infrastructure upgrades at the Trelawney Multipurpose Center and the stadium pool and all of that. She also spoke about something that I know that many of us didn't know, that there was a sports insurance plan, and 10% of the athletes are covered under this plan, and encourage that sporting bodies and persons, agencies who are here who engage or persons with disabilities in sports, you need to ensure that you're registered and as a part of this plan. She also spoke about the work with the GC Foster College, and she also spoke about the culture policy, ensuring that persons with disabilities are part of that consultation, and the Culture and Creative Industries Council, ensuring that persons with disabilities are appointed as part of that culture. And so we have quite a bit that is happening. Some we didn't know, some we knew about. And so we're opening the floor for comments and questions to our able presenters this morning. Can we put up our hands if we have a question, if we have a comment to make? Can we just move with the mic? Thank you. Mr. Thorny, Michael Thorny, and then we'll come to Conrad.
This question is for Minister Grange. I know that the work has been done at the National Stadium. Well, let me step so you can see. Yes, I know that work has been done at the National Stadium.
If you could introduce yourself.
You introduced me. Yes. I'm Michael Forney.
Yeah.
And I know that this work has been done at the National Stadium. Access for persons with physical disabilities. I have a physical disability. I'm post-polio. And the last time I went to the stadium, I enjoyed the event, but I did not enjoy the hassle I had to go through in order to access the grandstand. The steps are too high.
Yes.
Even when it was renovated, during the time I went, it was still too high. And I believe that there needs to be the adoption of the universal access standards in renovating the National Stadium and its environs. So, having said that, how would you respond to that?
Okay. We're aware of that. And I had mentioned in my presentation this morning that we're doing major refurbishing and expansion of the National Stadium facilities. And it's going to cost over 40 million US. It's going to be done over a 3-year period. We are expanding the stadium to accommodate more persons. Because, you know, for example, when Champs, you don't even have enough room there. So it's almost like we're going to be rebuilding that facility. And what is being taken into consideration will be all the considerations, including that the facility is accessible and that the facility is built in a way that persons with disabilities can have all the necessary access done to international standards.
Yeah.
The first year, we hope to begin late this year, if not early next year. We have a process where major developments like those has to go to what is called the Public Sector Investment Committee, PIMSEC. We've been there, it has been approved, and in fact, we have been given funds now to do the preliminary work that is necessary. We also did what I would consider a study or an inspection of the aquatic center, and identify, it was specifically done to address the concerns for persons with disabilities. We have that report, and we're addressing those things that we have identified. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Thorny. And the good thing about creating access, when you create access, it serves everybody. Persons with disabilities, the elderly, pregnant mothers, people with heavy load, everybody. Thank you very much, Minister. Conrad?
Good morning. I'm Conrad Harris from the Jamaica Society for the Blind. And for persons who are blind, you might know that access to information is one of the greatest challenge. And I wanted to get any comments you might have on Jamaica and its willingness to sign the Marrakesh Treaty. Now, the Marrakesh Treaty is a treaty which seeks to ensure that books and other printed material are made accessible to persons who are blind and other print disabled persons, and that if they exist in accessible format in anywhere, they can be exchanged. So I can get a book from Canada instead of having to reproduce it here. So right now I know that Jamaica is not a signatory to that treaty, and I'm seeking any comments you might have on that.
Okay, now I can't respond in any detail, but what I do know is that this is a matter that the National Library is addressing, and I can get more information on it in order to provide that to Senator Morris, who will pass it on to you. But I am aware of this treaty and I'm aware that the National Library has introduced some initiatives to ensure that we are a signatory. I'm also the chairman of the Jamaica National Commission on UNESCO. And I will speak to the Secretary General as well about it to see how this treaty can be expedited, the signing of it can be expedited. Okay? Good, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Just to indicate, borrow minutes. Sure. Just to indicate that this is not a matter that the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade has some role to play as well, because I, in a former role, I had discussions with them as to getting them signing that treaty, and it never happened. But I know that we have been building up our local legislation to make sure that materials are available in an accessible format, because the Access to Information Act, which was amended some time ago, requires that, and there are some other legislation, the copyright legislation, that makes provision for the blind and visually impaired to get documents in an accessible format. But the truth is that we need to get to the point where we have those international treaties signed and ratified by Jamaica. Because the thing is that people have to understand the situation with persons who have visual impairment. A vast majority of the books that are written in print, and that makes it extremely difficult for a blind person, and so you don't want to place the blind person in a compromising position where they have to go now resort to scanning people's book illegally and deny the rights and privileges of the author. So you have to make sure that it's done the correct way, and I think that the country signing the treaty is the best approach, so that persons with visual impairment can legally access these material.
And might I add that the deaf community would benefit as well as persons with intellectual disabilities, because we'd have to translate materials to sign language and to also translate to simpler language. So it's not just persons with visual impairments and blindness. So a vast majority of our population will benefit if this treaty is signed. Two final questions. I see Victor, yes, and Mary. Okay. Oh, so three. All right. We have Andre. So it's Victor, Mary, then Andre. Yes.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
My name is Victor Pusey Brown, and last night, after I left here last night, and see what happened here yesterday, I wrote this. It is a tribute to mothers of persons with disabilities. 24/7, you have worked, confronting all the filth and dirt. The receptacle of our birth, you have replenished the earth. Abused, ridiculed, and confused, yet with your nurturing skills, with the faith and perseverance, you stand tall. Thank you very much.
Okay, what important?
I would like to make a comment. All the creative persons here, if you write poetry or you write lyrics for songs, you should become members of Jam Copy, which is the entity that protects literary works. It's important you do so because you join that organization. They pay out royalties because they pay out royalties to all their members. All their members. So if you're a writer, sign up with Jam Copy because the way they are structured, they have MOUs with the various ministries, with a number of schools, with a number of entities based on the photocopying material. So even if you're a writer and your material was never copied by anyone, you automatically, as a member of that organization, get a royalty check because you are part of a literary community. So I don't know, for example, if Senator Morris is a member of that organization. Fairly recently, Mr. Serga signed up as a member. I am a member. These are things within the structure, within the system from which you can benefit as long as you're a writer. You write articles, you write poetry, you write lyrics, and so on. You write books. Go and sign up with Jam Copy. Okay?
All right. Thank you very much, Minister.
It's important to note, though, and I think what I took away from your point today is something very profound. Oftentimes, we focus on those individuals with disabilities. And I am not sure that we have gotten to a place, we have not even gotten up to a place that we can say we are comfortable with our support of persons with disability. To get to a place where we then can say we understand and seek to give support to those persons who care for those with disabilities is another step.
Yeah.
And it's a critical step.
Yeah.
Because the burden placed on caregivers, and I've seen it several times, I think this urges me to take it to another level in terms of our policy direction and how it is that we look at forming that support structure and putting assistance in place to those persons who often care, to whether they are your own children or there are children who you have just decided to take on, but the caregiver is oftentimes even more burdened than the person suffering the disability himself. Yes. You know, so I really enjoyed your point.
Thank you.
Okay, we're about to wrap up, but we have two more, Mary and Andre. Those are the two last persons.
Good morning, everyone.
Yes.
First of all, I just want to commend Senator Morris and his team for putting together these 2 days, really, and to get the involvement of the entire island. They must be commended. Then to have these powerful ladies this morning is another great commendation. Madam Anita, if I'm not knowledgeable, I stand corrected. But my question is for Minister Grange. You mentioned the process of improving the National Stadium and the stadium down in Trelawney. I don't know what plan you have, if there's any, for the improvement of the mini stadium in Sligoville, which is very underutilized. And I think that if, especially for the 3 years, that some of the events for the National Stadium will be curtailed, it would be very good if the Sligoville Stadium could be improved to facilitate some of these events.
Okay, now, Sligoville Stadium, there is a history to that facility.
Okay.
And in fact, there was some concern expressed about its the fact that it's underutilized. It was actually under the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. I had it transferred to the Ministry of Sports when I was minister in 2008, between 2008 and 2011. Now, that facility, I've been in various discussions with various entities wanting to utilize for that facility. And in addition to that, there's the Great House, which was being restored by the Chinese. And that Great House now, I think, is in disrepair because whatever was done to it either was not completed, and also there is no real management and oversight of the facility. MP Nita Headley, it's now in her constituency, and during the time that she was Minister of Sports, I think she made some initiatives. But it is a facility that Miss Nita Headley uses for her cultural event, which I give support to, and it is extremely successful, that event. Yeah. But by and large, the facility, there has to be a plan for it. There has to be a whole program for it. I've been approached by many entities and individuals who want to partner to ensure that the facility is fully utilized. It was actually funded, the funds that built that facility came from the Chinese, who gave all the islands funding to build a facility for World Cup, for the Cricket World Cup. And that facility was actually built rather than in a community than for the World Cup. So there are some issues that have to be sorted out to fully utilize it, number one, and to regularize its, I don't know if I should say it's ownership. It's like an orphan right now.
Let me say that it's not an orphan. I'm just responding.
Yes.
No.
But it actually belongs, it actually officially sits in the Ministry of Sports and has to be. I understand at one point that GC Foster, or some arrangement with GC Foster, but it has to be regularized.
Yeah, whatever it is, it can be started over
and it needs to be properly utilized.
Right, but
I would like an opportunity.
You neighbors.
Yeah, but we are.
Can work together.
But I want to give you an update.
Yes.
I want to give you an update because it does sit in my constituency.
Okay.
I don't know that I'm not gonna fight over who it belongs. It belongs to the people of Jamaica, and it belongs to the people of Jamaica.
And
so
entity must be responsible for it.
I'm just saying to you at this point, when former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable K.D. Knight, approached the Chinese then to have improved a playfield in the Sligoville area, it was not intended. Well, I have the document, so I'm only telling what I know. You can always tell her what you know. And it was intended to upgrade the playfield, right? We ended up with a much larger facility. Now, one of the things that is clear is that during my tenure as minister, quite a bit of work went into establishing an MOU. I did quite a bit of work in refurbishing the stadium. I even went to the extent to have it painted in the GC Foster colors, because we had in principle reached an agreement with the Ministry of Education that GC Foster would take over the facility and have it as a northern campus of the college. Now, I thought that was a good way to share the facility with the community of Sligoville, but while offering it as a teaching and learning facility for everyone in the country. Unfortunately, it didn't materialize towards the end of my tenure. I am at this place, and Minister would have mentioned that we do utilize it annually for Jamaica's most successful free outdoor festival at this time in our community, and because Sligoville remains the first free village. We do have a plan in place now with the Heritage Foundation and a number of persons who have been visiting from the Heritage Trust over a number of years to seek to have a 3-year developmental plan to upgrade the Great House facility. While I still welcome any discussions that Minister might be having at this time with anyone who wants to seek partnership with utilizing the stadium, because it is not for anyone to hug or to hold, but it is important that it is within the community of Sligoville and that the people of Sligoville must always have access to that facility within their community. So the 3-year plan that we have developed, and I'm working with someone outside of TPDCO to upgrade, because we have not been able to get funding all at once, to upgrade the facility at the Great House to include a restaurant on top of that beautiful hillside overlooking Kingston that would share as part of our community tourism project, which I'm now putting to the Ministry of Tourism. So it is something that I hope to work with whomever, and I'm not in the business of quarreling about who owns and who does not own. I'm in the business of how best we utilize it for the betterment of our people and the betterment of Jamaica.
Thank you. Actually, I just thought about the facility and the availability, you know, and I appreciate the fact that you explained that to us.
Thank you very much.
Myself, I'm Mary Michelle Coombs, and I'm a disability advocate.
Thank you very much, Mary. Our final intervention, because we have to wrap up. We're way over time. Andre.
I'm Andre Wito. I'm acting president of Deaf Sports Jamaica. And sports is one of the powerful tools where people are all different types, diverse groups are around. So you can use signage in the stadium. It's one of my recommendations, with little sign still pictures. So when people are entering the stadium, they'll be able to see it. And I remember that they have a project going at the St. Christopher's School for the Deaf. So I'm strongly recommending, if you want to learn sign language, and you spoke about GC Foster and coaches, they should be able to learn sign language, because we have our athletes and we have to pay for interpreting costs because the coach can't communicate with our athletes. So that's one of the recommendations. And another recommendation is putting signage in the stadiums with still signs, so that people will be able to access what sign language looks like. I'm hoping that they can use this opportunity to educate the public, and it will reduce the cost of interpreting.
I just want to indicate that coming out of a meeting that we had with Deaf Sport, and also a conversation that I had with our interpreter, that I actually had asked if we could have further discussions, and if some kind of proposal, brief could be prepared for me, so that I could ensure that the concerns that were expressed here earlier, that we could address those, so that we would ensure, even in terms of training persons and certifying them, that that's a big concern. And I want to work closely with persons in that field to assist in ensuring the training and the certification, because I know it's a big problem. Yeah. All right, so I'm still available and I'm waiting.
Thank you very much, Minister. Thank you very much also, Ms. Nita, sorry, our opposition spokesperson. I'm so sorry. We've had a very, you will take it? Okay, all right, so we'll take the last two then. Yes. Okay, yes, Sir Henry, yes.
Good morning, I'm Henry Lawson, and today I'm representing National Culture Group for the Blind, which I gave a presentation for yesterday, and I'm so happy to have Minister and I would like to say that I'm the coordinator of National Culture Group for the Blind, and was wondering whether we could place ourselves in a position where we could get assistance, you know, because we have we are a very good folk group and we love our culture, and we wanted to know whether we could get assistance from the whole matter of inclusion, whether we could get foreign tourists or some kind of thing, but we place ourselves to help in any way possible, so that we could, at any time that we are needed in the schools, to help with them, because we do not want our folk culture to die. So we would want to know whether either of you ladies would be able to give us an idea as to how we as a folk group, and I'm saying it on behalf of my colleagues, could serve our country and just place ourselves at the disposal of our country to serve culturally.
I would like just to advise you that we now have a program, a community cultural development outreach program, where we provide funding to communities and to groups for further development and support in their various field of activities. And so I will take your information and we will follow up with you.
We have a CD also that I think.
Very good. So we will follow up with you and discuss what kind of assistance you require, and we will certainly provide you with some funding. Okay?
All right, we really have to wrap up. I'm going to ask other persons who may have questions and concerns to just speak with Minister as we wrap up, because we have Jadko, whose presentation should have been an hour or so ago. All right, so thank you very much, Minister Grange. Thank you very much, Ms. Nita, for allowing us, to engage you in this wonderful discussion this morning. Thank you for participating, everyone, and we look forward to more inclusion, greater inclusion in sports and culture in Jamaica going forward for persons with disabilities. Thank you very much.
Minister, before you leave, we are giving some little tokens to our participants, and I'm presenting to you a little token to show our appreciation. And when you open it, you'll see that it has some connection to the giver of the book.
Thank you so much.
Sadly, all right, Peter. Thank you very much for coming and sharing, and we do enjoy your presentation and contribution. All right.
Can we give them both?
Christine, yes. One for you too.
Oh, thank you, Senator.
Okay, all right. Picture with Minister. All right. Who taking?
Me.
All right. Good.
Okay.
Come right beside me.
All right. Okay.
I'm pretty sure
All right.
I will be your moderator for this session. I'm asking you to settle down, please. So in this session, we'll be looking at, our presenters will be JADCO, Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, and they will be presenting on doping in sports. So I'll ask the presenters to come, listen attentively, so that you can ask your questions at the end of the presentation. So join me in welcoming the representatives from JADCO.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Vanessa Reed Ledford, and I'm the Director of Communication and Education at the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission. And with me this morning is Mrs. Nadia Basu. She is the Director of Technical Services, and we have other members of the team with us. Before I begin my presentation though, I would like to hear from you. I'm seeing so many familiar faces this morning. Mr. Witter, good morning. I'd like to hear from you. What do you know about the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission? Do we have a mic that we can hand around so that everyone can hear what the participants are saying? Yes, sir, you can proceed.
You are the authority in assessing and testing, educating and testing athletes if they're in compliance with the doping standards of their sport.
Brilliant. Would anyone else like to add anything? Yes, sir. Yes.
Body that is responsible for the testing of athletes,
correct. All right. So who is JADCO? We are the National Anti-Doping Agency that was established by the Anti-Doping in Sport Act of July 25, 2008. The Anti-Doping in Sport Act of 2008 was repealed and replaced by the Anti-Doping in Sport Act 2014. Mandated to carry out the National Anti-Doping Program, to eradicate doping in sport and to keep Jamaica free from doping. The Anti-Doping in Sport Act of 2014 established 4 independent bodies. JADCO, and I will tell you more about JADCO later. The JADCO Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee. Have you ever heard about the JADCO Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee before? Yes, sir.
If you can prove that you have a medical condition.
Are you hearing what this gentleman is saying? Everybody do it. Do we have a mic that we can give him? So he's at the back of the room, sir.
Just raise your hand, please.
If, as an athlete, you're suffering from a medical condition which requires that you take a substance which is on the banned list, you have to submit to the Therapeutic Use Exemption Panel, and they will rule whether that is whether you will be allowed to continue competing while you're on this medical regime.
What is your name, sir?
I'm John Earl Spence. I'm a sports psychologist and also the lead psychologist for Fight for Peace.
Mr. Spence, right now I'm feeling like I need to give you the mic so you can deliver the presentation. You're so well informed. I'm impressed. So as he said, the JADCO Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee, they are the ones who are responsible for if an athlete has a legitimate medical condition. They are the ones responsible for allowing the athlete to participate in an event if they have to take a medication that might be on the prohibited list. And that is what the Therapeutic Use Exemption Committee does. Are you aware of the fact that an athlete can test positive from a cough syrup? Do you know that? Yes. Right, so athletes are not machines. They will get ill from time to time. And in the event that an athlete gets ill and they have to take a medication that is on the prohibited list, guess what? They have no excuse, because guess what? They can apply for what? A therapeutic use exemption, right? And what I want everybody to do for me today, right? We're not all athletes in the room, but you know the role that you can play in the process? What's the role that you can play? Exactly. We all have a role to play in the fight against doping in sport. It's not just the athletes, you know. The efforts of the athlete support personnel are equally important. So when you get the information today, don't keep it to yourself, you know. You have to be kind. What you must do? All right. There's also the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel. Does anybody know what the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel does? I'm sure someone in the room knows. Nobody knows? Seriously? You know watch the sports? Oh, see somebody over here who knows. Yes, sir. Where's the mic? See, all right, they're coming with the mic. You hear?
Yes, good morning. I think this panel is a panel that is responsible for sitting and listening to both the athlete and and what he when the athlete is tested positive, this is the panel that sits and listens to his or her side of the story and deliberates and makes their finding.
Brilliant, brilliant. That is correct. Are you aware of the fact that it is not JADCO who actually sanctions the athletes? It's the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel. And the system is set up this way to ensure that there are checks and balances. Have you ever heard the saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely? Guess what happened? You do not want to put too much power in the hands of one body, right? Would you want to be in a situation where someone is deciding your fate and them don't like you? Nobody wants to be in that situation, right? So there are checks and balances. So you have different bodies to ensure there's fairness. So it is actually the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel that is responsible for sanctioning the athletes and not the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission. Is that clear? There's also the Anti-Doping Appeal Tribunal. Does anybody know what the Anti-Doping Appeal Tribunal does?
Appeal.
You are correct, sir. So you're an athlete. You appeared in front of the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel, and you feel as if the sanction that you received wasn't fair. You have the option of taking your concerns to the Anti-Doping Appeal Tribunal. And if you're an international level athlete, you can take it to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. So doesn't the system sound fair? Alright, but guess what? As athletes, you don't want to end up in a situation where you have to appear in front of the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel or the Anti-Doping Appeal Tribunal, because all of this is, one, very expensive. You have to find money to pay a lawyer. And two, who wants to be in a situation where they are subject to public scrutiny, right? Your reputation going down the drain. Who would want to be in a situation like that? Nobody. And that is why it is so important for athletes to get information from the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission or even from the WADA website so that they can make informed decisions. You know, one of the things that I have recognized since I've been working with the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, a lot of the times when athletes test positive or have an anti-doping rule violation, because it's not just about testing positive, you know that they weren't intentionally trying to dope. Sometimes people make mistakes because they did not have the information that was necessary for them to make an informed decision? Did you know that? Yes. So when you hear that somebody tests positive, don't jump to any conclusions and start judging, leave judgment to the Lord, right? Because sometimes it's a mistake. And that is why, as athlete support personnel, you all know that you're athlete support personnel, right? As athlete support personnel, you have an integral role to play in the process, because as I stated before, the information that you receive here this morning is not for you, you know. Who is it for? The athletes, right? So you need to share the information that you're getting with them when you leave here. Alright, so the World Anti-Doping Agency is the international independent organization that was created in 1999 to promote, coordinate, and monitor the fight against doping in sports in all its forms. So WADA is our parent body. So in Jamaica, you have the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission. In the US, you have USADA. In the UK, you have UCAD. So everybody has their anti-doping body, and the World Anti-Doping Agency is the parent body. They're also responsible for establishing the code. Do you know what the code is? You know what the code is? See it there right in front of you. Everybody read with me? Alright. That probably won't work, so I'll read it for you. But guess what? You see, if you don't get anything else that I said today, it is very important for you to understand this, alright? The code is the document that harmonizes regulations regarding anti-doping across all sports and all countries of the world. Let me read it again. The code is the document that harmonizes regulations regarding anti-doping across all sports and all countries of the world. So the code harmonizes the rules and the regulations, right? So guess what happened? Sometimes the Jamaican athletes feel as if JADCO pressuring them, you know. But we're not pressuring any athletes, because guess what? We didn't set any rules at JADCO, you know. The rules are set by the World Anti-Doping Code. And as it says in the presentation, all sports and all countries have to abide by the rules. So just bear that in mind. Whenever you hear that an athlete has an anti-doping rule violation, or an athlete has tested positive, right? The rules are set by who? WADA, right? And the code is the document that harmonizes the regulation. Because in the reality of the situation is this: who would want to be competing in a sport if there was one set of rules for you and a different set of rules for your competitors? Who would want to be in a situation like that? So we have to ensure that there's fairness, justice, and that is the purpose of the World Anti-Doping Code. Everybody get that? Yes. Alright, so the World Anti-Doping Program consists of 3 levels. And level 1 is the World Anti-Doping Code. Who can tell me what the World Anti-Doping Code is? Who wants to tell me what the code is? Remember, I told you that if you don't leave with anything else that I said today, you know, you at least need to understand what the code is. Who knows what the code is? Who is up? Stand loud so everybody can hear you. Let me give you the mic so you can talk loud so everybody can hear you.
It harmonizes regulations regarding anti-doping across all sports and across all countries of the world.
Brilliant. Don't you think she deserves a reward for that? I'm going to give her a prize. Come up here for me. Can you join me? Yes, I can get the person signing. Alright, so everybody knows what the code is now, right? Let me go back one more time to ensure that we're all in the loop. The code is the document that harmonizes regulations regarding anti-doping across all sports and all countries of the world. So level 2 of the World Anti-Doping Program consists of therapeutic use exemptions. And we all know what therapeutic use exemptions are, right? Yes. Fabulous. What are therapeutic use exemptions? Don't say yes if you don't know, you know. Who wants to tell me what a therapeutic use exemption is? Okay, so nobody don't want no prize this morning. Yes, ma'am.
It's when you're taking medication and you have to get permission or declare the use of that medication.
Do you think I should give her a prize for that? Yes. Okay, there's also testing and investigation. When Mrs. Vasily is delivering her presentation, she'll tell you more about this. Laboratories, the prohibited list. Everybody know what the prohibited list is? You don't know what the prohibited list is? Show of hands, everybody who don't know what the prohibited list is. You don't know what the prohibited list is. Were the brochures distributed? Okay, that means you have a copy of the prohibited list. So guess what? You see, when you go home tonight, you can familiarize yourself with the list. But let me tell you something about the prohibited list. Most of you who will be reading, do I have any doctors in the house? Any doctors? Alright. So you see the prohibited list? If you're an athlete and you are going to use anything that is on the prohibited list, you need guidance from a doctor. Right? Because you may not be in a position to interpret a lot of the information that is on the prohibited list. So you have to depend on the expert, right? There have been many instances in which athletes ended up in problems, right? Tested positive for taking supplements, and let me use this opportunity to say, JADCO does not endorse the use of supplements. We do not endorse the use of supplements. Does anybody know why we don't endorse the use of supplements?
Yes.
Why we don't endorse the use of supplements?
Because if you endorse the use of supplements, it can help to boost up energy. Extra energy, you will play unfair and you'll win all your races and so on.
Let me just tell you, it's not just about playing unfair, you know, right? The supplement industry is not regulated, right? So we have no control, right? We don't know what is included in the substances that are included in any supplement, right? And they don't have to declare that on the bottle. So guess what? It's not just about you winning the race or getting an advantage. There have been instances in which people have ended up dead, serious, dead, because of taking supplements, right? And I want you to bear in mind, it's not just about, by the way, JADCO is for all sports. It's not just track and field, all sport, right? And at the end of the day, is it really worth it though, just to win a race or to come first in your sport? You take some supplements and end up dead, would it be worth it? No. Exactly, so it's not a risk that is worth it. JADCO does not endorse the use of supplements. So if, God forbid, an athlete ends up in front of the independent anti-doping disciplinary panel, they cannot tell the panel that, oh, it's not my fault, it's the supplement company put something. No. There's such a thing as the strict liability rule, which states that the athlete is responsible for any prohibited substance that is found in their system, regardless of how the substance got in their system. The strict liability rule, so it's the athlete who will be held responsible. However, even though it is the athlete who will be held responsible, Did you know that athlete support personnel can also be sanctioned? Did you know that? So don't help an athlete to dope and then feel say, hey, they're the ones who go and get in trouble. That don't have anything to do with me. You can end up in problem too. Alright? There's also the protection of privacy and personal information, and level 3 of the program, which consists of non-mandatory guidelines and models of better practice. So JADCO is a part of the World Anti-Doping Program, and JADCO adheres to the World Anti-Doping Code, and everybody knows what the code is, right? Right, I'm feeling good about that. What is international standards, and how many standards are there? Seriously? Alright, let me go back so we can see again. How many international standards are there? 5. Seriously? Alright. The Anti-Doping Sport Act of 2014 and the 2015 JADCO rules. So, JADCO's functions and responsibility. What do we do? What is our goal? What is our mission? One of our missions is educating athletes, support personnel and general public, right? Because guess what? You see, when the information is out there and people know exactly what they're supposed to do, it puts them in a situation where they can make informed decisions. Some of JADCO's outreach programs, annual initiatives, include our JADCO school tour, and we're currently doing our school tour in the parish of Manchester. Last year we were in the parish of Clarendon, the year before that we were in St. Catherine, the year before that we were in Kingston, and this year we'll be going to St. Elizabeth. We're ensuring that the junior athletes, secondary school athletes, get information while they are young. So when they become senior athletes, they'll be well informed. Sound like a good idea? Yes. There's also our junior athletes anti-doping education workshops, which is held annually during the month of October across the island. Have you ever heard about the junior athletes anti-doping education workshop for? One time God said, we'll come, so you know today. And remember what I told you, you know, when you get the information, it's not for you, you know. You need to share the information, right? So when we have the workshop this year, I'll see an increase in numbers because all of you would have played a role in communicating this information so people know that the workshop is happening, right? There's also our annual Senior Athletes Anti-Doping Education Workshop, which is held annually during the month of November. You have heard about the Senior Athletes Anti-Doping Education Workshop before? Seriously? But it looks like we're not working hard enough at JADCO. We need to start working harder. There's also, and this initiative is for athlete support personnel, the JADCO Symposium. Have you heard about the JADCO Symposium before? Oh, somebody heard about it? I feel really excited. Who heard about it? Wonderful. Other ongoing initiatives include workshops with athletes and support personnel, workshops with sporting associations, federations, and professional groups, workshops with athletes competing in major games. Which major game is coming up? Champs, right? So we'll be at Champs, but which other major game? Major international game. Right, so you see, guess what happened? The Commonwealth Games coming up. So we're going to ensure that before the athletes leave the island, right, we provide them with information on anti-doping so they are familiar before they leave the island. Sound like a good idea? Yeah. There's also the Carifta Games. Before the athletes depart for the Carifta Games, we ensure that we meet with them and provide them with the information so they can make informed decisions. We are also responsible for setting up information booths at sporting events. So everybody said Champs a while ago. So we will be at Champs all of next week, ensuring that we disseminate information to our junior athletes. Alright, JADCO and You television and radio programs. Who has heard about the JADCO and You program? Somebody here? Thank you, Jesus, because if you didn't tell me, so you're not hearing out. I don't know if I could have managed it. Does anybody in the room know the JADCO song? Anybody know the song? I have a prize for anybody who can sing the song for me. You have never seen the ad on TV. Somebody knows it? Alright, if you can sing it for me, you get a prize. Come for your prize. Wait, alright, sorry. You can't get the press to listen to the people. So you have to listen to somebody. Let me give you the mic.
We don't need no dough. We don't need no dough.
Alright, I don't feel too bad now. Because it means that our hard work is not going in vain. At least we're reaching one person, so that's fantastic. Alright. We also disseminate a newsletter on a quarterly basis. It's called The True Spirit. And this newsletter is sent to everybody in our database. So is our register being circulated? You don't sign the register yet? Anybody in here sign the register? Yes. So when you sign the register and you give us your email address, when we send the truth, you will be able to receive it. So ensure that you sign the register so that you can get the information. Alright? Alright, so JADCO's functions and responsibilities includes conducting testing on all athletes in competition, out of competition, and an athlete can be targeted for testing both in and out of competition. When Mrs. Vasley is delivering her presentation, she will tell you more about this. We're also responsible for establishing the registered testing pool, which is a pool of top-level athletes who are subjected to in and out of competition testing. And these athletes are required to submit whereabouts information on a quarterly basis. So in a nutshell, JADCO's functions and responsibilities include deterrence through communication and education initiatives, detection through testing activities and investigations, and enforcement by presenting cases of anti-doping rule violations to the disciplinary panel. And the purpose of all the body standards and programs is to work toward a dope-free sporting environment. But before I leave, I just have one more thing to say to all of you. I just want you to remember that the fight against doping in sport is not just JADCO alone, you know. Right? Everybody, each of you in this room, have an important role to play in the process. Right? If you don't share the information with the athletes, and even the athlete support personnel, they're not going to know. So you see, all of the information that you'll be receiving from Mrs. Vassell, very important information. Don't be selfish, you know. Don't keep it to yourself, you know. It's not for you, it's for the athletes. Everyone in this room has a role to play in the fight against doping in sport. And even when Mrs. Vassell delivers her presentation today, I'm sure you may have additional questions, or you may want to find out more. Did you know that the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission has a website? www.jadco.gov.jm. So you can go to the JADCO website to get additional information. Show of hands, everybody in the room who is on social media. I should say everybody hand up in the on social media. Alright, so we are on Facebook, we're on Twitter, we're on Instagram, we have a YouTube channel, so just follow us on social media, alright? Thank you very much for your time.
All right, everyone is hearing me? Yeah. All right, good morning again. My name is Mrs. Nadia Vassal. I am the Director of Technical Services at the Jamaica Anti-Doping Commission, and I'm going to go through the doping control process with you. I was just told that I had 20 minutes, so I'm going to go as fast as I can. All right, so what is doping? In the anti-doping world, doping is the occurrence of one or more anti-doping rules. Now, there are 10 ways an athlete can get an anti-doping rule violation. Everyone knows about the testing and when athletes are tested and they return a positive test, right? A lot of people know about that, but that is just one way an athlete can get an anti-doping rule violation. There are 9 other ways, and I'm going to go through them quickly. Alright, so number 1, as I said, everyone knows about the testing. So if the athlete is tested and the results come back positive, so that means that there was a presence of the banned substances, metabolites or markers in that sample, right? That is what we call an adverse analytical finding. Once an athlete gets an anti-doping rule violation, there are 10 ways. That athlete is going to end up in front of the independent anti-doping disciplinary panel where they are going to answer to the charges, right? So, once an athlete gets any one of this ADRV, anti-doping rule violation, they're going to end up in front of the independent anti-doping disciplinary panel and they will hear their case. Alright, so if that athlete ends up in front of the IADP, Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel, they can be sanctioned anywhere from a reprimand to 4 years. Number 2, if an athlete use or attempt to use a banned substance or banned method, right, and we catch wind of this, Jack will catch wind of this, we will present it. We can present it in front of the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel once we can prove this case. If it is proven and the athlete is found guilty of that charge, then they can get a sanction anywhere from a reprimand up to 4 years. Now, number 3, if an athlete evade, refuse, or fail to submit to sample collection. So, if we have a doping control officer, the DCOs, doping control officers are the one that goes out to test the athletes, and we have a chaperone with them. So we go out to test the athlete, and that athlete downright refuses to be tested, or they try to evade, they try to run away, right? They can get into trouble, right? So we don't want athletes, we don't want you doing that. Right? Because if you do that, and we can prove the case in front of the IADP, the Independent Anti-Doping Disciplinary Panel, then you can get a sanction anywhere between 2 to 4 years. Number 4, so if we're testing you, you are attempting to tamper or even tamper with the doping control process. Back in the days, we heard that some persons who went into the bathroom facility, because back in that day, in the days, they never usually had someone to witness the passing of the urine. The athlete would just go into the bathroom, pass the urine and come out. But then they catch wind of sometimes that urine is replaced by another person's urine, right? So that is actually tampering. So if an athlete tamper or attempt to tamper with the process, right, they can get a sanction anywhere up to 4 years. If the athlete is found in possession of the banned substances or banned methods, we catch a wind of this, the athlete appears in front of the IADP, they can get a sanction anywhere between a reprimand to a maximum of 4 years. Trafficking and administration, these are very important, very important violations. Because guess what? If you are caught trafficking the banned substances or banned methods, right? Or if you are even caught administering the banned substances or using the banned methods, you can get a sanction anywhere from 4 years up to a lifetime ban. So those two, very critical there, right? As an athlete, you do not want to be sanctioned at all, as in sanction at all, even up to lifetime, that is even worse. So you don't want that. Whereabouts? Now, that's whereabouts violations, 3 filing failures and or missteps. And a misstep, but I'll do that shortly. But if you are charged with this violation and you're found guilty, sanction anywhere between 1 to 2 years. Complicity. If you assist, encourage, aid, abet, conspire, or to cover up an anti-doping rule violation, right? So you are complicit. Say for instance, the doping control officer goes to test an athlete, right? You are another athlete who is a friend of that athlete being tested, and you're aiding on that athlete and you're saying, don't do the test, don't do the test, don't do the test. You yourself can also get in trouble for that, all right? Number 10, prohibited association. So, say for instance, this is an example. You have a coach who is coaching you, right? Or you have a doctor who is looking after you. That doctor is actually banned or is serving a period of, they're banned or serving a period of ineligibility. So the coach is banned or the doctor is banned, right? Judge could catch a win of this if we realize that you're in that association, a professional association, with that doctor or that coach, then we will write to you and we will say deceased from being in that kind of association with these individuals. If you do not heed, then you can get a sanction anywhere from 1 to 2 years. And of course, the sanctions depend on the degree of fault and or seriousness of the violation. Now, I'm going to go into the whereabouts information and I'm going to explain to you more the filing failure and the missteps. Now, what is whereabouts information? Now, once you are in the registered testing pool, registered testing pool is a pool of top level athletes. And I must say that we have 3 athletes who have impairments that are in our registered testing pool. 3 athletes who have impairments, right? And they're in our registered testing pool. Now, they have to submit their whereabouts information on a quarterly basis to JADCO, right? There are deadlines where they have to submit this information by. And they submit the information on a system we call ADAMS, Anti-Doping Administration and Management System, right? So they submit their information. Once you're in the registered testing pool, right, you are required to submit these information. You have a specific 60-minute time slot where we can come to test you anytime between 5 a.m. and 11 p.m. If you have an impairment, you're gonna also put that on your whereabouts information. So if you are hearing impaired, if you are visually impaired, if you wheelchair, you're wheelchair bound, you need to put that on your whereabouts information, right? And you also need to put your mailing address, overnight accommodation, regular activities. So if you say you are at the gym, you practice every day at the gym, between 2 and 3 or 2 and 4, you put that in your whereabouts. Your competition location. So if you have a competition, say for instance you're going to the upcoming Commonwealth Games, you also have to put that information. Now, whereabouts information, you have to provide all of this information to JADCO by a certain deadline, right? So each quarter have their deadlines. December 31 is the deadline for March, January to March. What quarter are we now in, everyone? The first quarter, which is? January to March. Alright, the next quarter will be what? April to June. Alright, so the deadline to submit your whereabouts information for the next quarter, April to June, will be when? March 31st. Right. Now, So for athletes in the registered testing pool who don't submit their information by March 31st, they're going to be liable for what we call a filing failure. Alright? Whereabouts information must be accurate, complete, timely. Failure to provide your whereabouts information by the deadline can result in a filing failure. If you also put fraudulent information on your whereabouts, right, that can also lead to a filing failure. So say for instance you put that you're living at an address, say 2 Timbuktu Avenue, and we go down to 2 Timbuktu Avenue and we see a piece of land. That cannot work, right? So that's misleading, that's fraudulent. Alright, so if the DCO, the doping control officer, comes to test that athlete and the athlete is not available within that 1 hour time slot, within that 60-minute time slot, that athlete is liable for what we call a missed test. So 3 missed tests and or filing failures within a 12-month period can lead to an anti-doping rule violation. So that's the whereabouts violation. An athlete is responsible when an adverse analytical finding occurs, whenever prohibited substance is found in an athlete's sample, regardless of whether the athlete intentionally or unintentionally used that prohibited substance or was negligent or otherwise at fault. In other words, what is that saying is that once there's an adverse analytical finding, you test positive, you, the athlete, is responsible. You are the one who's going to end up in front of the independent anti-doping disciplinary panel for them to hear your case, and you have to prove your case. Alright, so the prohibited list, I showed you that before when Mrs. Ledford was making her presentation. It's a list of substances that are prohibited at all times in competition and in particular sport. All of you should have one there. You can look through that. Testing occurs in competition. Everybody knows what in competition is. Testing occurs out of competition. We do blood and urine tests. Now we're going to go through the sample collection process, and I need a volunteer to go through this with me very, very quickly. Quick. Volunteer, please. They're telling me I have less than 10 minutes. A volunteer? No volunteer? You're coming, sir? Alright, thank you very much. Alright, so come over here for me, please. Just come. Right. Okay, so I have Mr. George Thorney here with me this morning, and he's going to be an athlete. I'm going to be the doping control officer today, right? And we're going to be collecting a urine sample from Mr. George Thorney this morning, right? Okay, so we're going to go through the notification process here, right? Now, we have our notification forms and we have our doping control forms here, right? And so we're going to notify Mr. George Thorney, right, that he is selected for doping control, right? Now, so we're going to read on the form to him, right? We're going to produce our ID, and we are going to also produce our letter of authority, right? Mr. George Thorney, he also needs to produce his ID also to say that he is George Thorney, right? And so that's the notification form. And at this time, Mr. George Thorney has rights. He has the right to a representative and, if available, an interpreter. So persons with impairments have the right to a representative. That representative can help them along the way during the doping control process. Mr. Thorney also has the right to ask for additional information regarding the sample collection process. He has the right to request a delay in reporting to the doping control station for valid reasons, and he has the right to request a modification to the sample collection process. So persons with impairment they have the right to request modification to the sample collection process. So, say for instance, we're doing a test at the stadium and we were testing Paralympic para-athletics person, right? We usually ensure that especially like the access, wheelchair, there's wheelchair access, especially to the bathroom facility, so that they can go in and they can do their thing. All right, so the athletes also have responsibilities. They need to remain within the sight of the sample collection personnel. They need to produce their ID. They comply and they report to the doping control station immediately, unless for valid reasons. These are some of the valid reasons. If they have to participate in a medal ceremony, media commitment, competing in further events, pool warming down, medical treatment, locating a rep, or interpreter, or obtaining a photo ID, out of competition, some similar reasons. And Mr. Thorny now, he is going to follow the instructions of the doping control officer. Okay? So, Mr. Thorny, I'm going to ask you to wash your hands with water only, so just do the actions for me. Alright, I'm going to ask you also to select one of these sample collection vessels. Right? I want you to look on the vessel, hold it up, show everybody, we're going to do it quickly now. We want to make sure that it is not, there's no tear in it, it is sealed, and you're satisfied with it. You're satisfied? Okay. So, now, the person who is going to witness the passing of the urine from Mr. Thorny has to be of the same sex. So, obviously, I'm a female. Mr. Thorny is a male, right? So, I cannot witness the passing of the urine from Mr. Thorny, right? So, but today what I'm going to do, I'm going to just pretend as if I'm a male today, right? Alright, so then we should be of the same sex. Okay, so I'm going to take Mr. Thorny now into the bathroom facility, right? I'm going to instruct him to remove his clothing from chest to knee, right? So he will be naked as day from right here go down, right? And then he is, hold your cup please, right? So he is going to pee in this cup, and as I said, we have to witness the passing of the urine. So we have to actually see that the urine is coming from his organ and into the cup, right? For females, it's the same thing. The females, they can't sit on the toilet. They have to stoop, squat, and they pee, right? Okay. Now, so here. Take this up, please. Alright, so he has passed his urine, right? And he is going to maintain his urine at all times. So, if we're testing minors, minors must be accompanied by the representative throughout the entire sample collection session. The representative shall not witness the passing of the urine. However, unless requested by the minor, if the minor declines to have his own representative, we will actually assign a minor. Assign a representative to that minor. And that will be documented. So, testing the minor, right? If you look, this is the minor here passing the urine. This is a representative. This is a minor. This is the minor passing the urine. This is the DC or the chaperone who is witnessing the passing of the urine from the minor. And you have the representative looking on. Now the representative's job here is actually to watch the DCO or the chaperone who is witnessing the passing of the urine. That is all his duty is. He's not going to be witnessing the passing of the urine from the minor. Okay? Now, Mr. Thorny has to provide at least 90 mils of urine. How many mils of urine there did you provide, Mr. Thorny? 110. So we're ready to go. Right. So, if Mr. Thorny did not produce 90 mils of urine, will come into play. We call this a partial sample kit, and he will listen to the instructions of the DCO at that point in time. I'm going to ask you to choose a sample collection kit at this time. Choose one of those, please. You're going to spit the urine at this time. Alright? I'm going to ask you to just make sure that it is intact. You're good with it, right? It's good. Okay, so I want you to remove this blue tape here and quickly do it for me, please. My time is actually up. Alright, I want you, this transparent tape, yes, carry it up, no, this way, carry it up, open the box, right, take out the bottles, take out the bags, right, take out this pink paper, and throw that aside, this is garbage. So he's doing it by himself, right, okay, open up the bags for me, alright, okay, so, when you hold up the boxes and show the audience, just hold it up. Okay, so we have the orange, which is the A, the blue, which is the B. A lot of times you hear on the radio that the A sample tested positive, right? And then the athlete has to test, and then we have to test the B sample. So we're gonna split the urine right now. So I want you to open the B bottle, please. All right. Take out the packaging. Alright, hold on. Take out the top here. Don't put your hand in the top. Right, take out the red ring. Just throw it out. Put it aside. Put it face up. Do the same thing for this. Take off the packaging. You can just use the spray here. Yeah. And take it off. Alright. Take off the red ring. Put it down. Okay, so we're going to, so you have your box over there. I want you to verify that the number on the box is the same, the code on the box is the same as the code on the boxes and the cap. So just verify that for me. There's a code here, right? We want to verify that it's the same on the bottle and the cap. So just do that quickly for me. This is documented on the doping control form, right? The doping control officer would have taken information from the authority and it would be on the form. Alright, I want you to take your urine now. I'm going to start with the B bottle. Take your urine and we're going to pour to, you don't want to throw away your urine now, we're going to pour. And you're going to pour to this mark. Pour to the mark. No, don't take it off. Don't take it off. Come on, don't let it go. Right? Alright, so pour it to the mark. No, continue. Listen to the instructions of the doping control officer. Pour in. Alright, so we're going to pour the rest in here. We're going to pour it to this mark. To that mark here. Alright. Pour a little more, please. Alright. So you still have more, so continue pouring. Alright, until I tell you to stop. And we're just gonna leave a little chups in the, that is more than a chups, man. Continue pour. Alright, okay. And we're gonna close each bottle now. So take off a cap, close. Turn it, turn. Yes, with light, yes. Right, and do the other one. Turn. Alright. So the doping control officer is just gonna verify that the bottles have been closed properly. Alright, of course we have on our gloves and all. Alright, so we're gonna put these now in the bag, put A in the bag here, and we're gonna put it back in the box. Make sure the desiccant is under the bottle in the bag. So just put it in.
Okay, so we're gonna ask Jadko to just wrap up.
I'm wrapping up.
Okay, thanks.
Maybe 2 more minutes and I'm wrapping up. Alright, we're just getting it into the box. Alright? Thank you very much. All right, open the box. All right, and then you're gonna put this one in, and put it in the desiccant underneath, and put it in the box, right? And close. You're gonna take off these orange strips, right? Put it in the box first, right? Take off the orange strip. Take off the orange strip and seal, just like an envelope. Alright, and just seal it. Alright, so that is actually what we're taking a urine sample. Right, no, take off this one and seal it. Take it off. Alright, so he's taking it off. He's gonna seal it and we're gonna close the box. Now that urine sample is sent to the lab in Canada for testing, where they will test. So after testing, it either comes out positive or negative. If it's negative, the athlete is okay. If it is positive, that athlete is going to end up in front of the independent anti-doping disciplinary panel, where you will have to answer to the charge. Alright, so that is the doping control process using urine sample collection. Right?
Thanks for that very informative presentation. I'm going to ask Mr. Damien Rose from Blind Cricket to make the presentation to our presenters.
We do not have a water accredited lab here in Jamaica.
Oh, it's coming. Okay, he's next to the one, right? Yes, just okay.
Alright, thank you very much. Alright.
So while they're in their photo moments, we'd like to say thanks again for that very informative presentation, and I take my leave.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to recess for about 15 minutes. We are not going to the area we went yesterday for the break. When you go through the doors of this building, you turn to your left rather than to your right. You turn to your left and straight through the door and you'll be given something. Please don't take more than, it's light refreshment right now, so don't take more than the 15 minutes because we have to start back by the latest 20 past 12.